Hello and welcome to my video. This is a painting I did based on a sketch I drew when I had insomnia a few weeks ago. I thought it might look nice cleaned up and painted, so I did it. I think I do like the result. But first, a small apology. I discovered a bit too late that the focus is not perfect in the close-ups. I think the camera wanted to focus on my hand more than on the painting. While the footage is not so blurry as to be unusable, it's still less than ideal, so I'll make sure to double check in future videos to avoid this. This actually brings us to something that I want to talk about today, which is the fear of making bad art, or the fear of making something not good enough. I suffer a lot from this fear, especially when starting a painting. A painting is a bit of a time commitment in the way that sketching in one's sketchbook is not. It's bigger, more involved, and it takes me a long time to actually start when I sit down to make one. This is actually because I need to overcome this anxiety every time I make a painting. I really want to make something decent, and the fear is just there, in the way, needing to be overcome before I can start. Now, I know that not everything you make has to or even can be good, but here lies the problem. I know that a lot of artists struggle with this issue, but I think the reasons are not all the same for everybody. Everyone has a different history, different levels of self-confidence, and so on. I had a conversation about this with a friend who basically said that it's vanity and it's very conceited to think that making something that isn't good enough is a bad thing. And while I do see her point, I think it really depends on the why of the fear. Now, for me, it's a few things. The first thing, let's get that right out of the way, is perfectionism. Everyone has different levels of this, and I've been battling my perfectionism for a long time. I do recognize it plays a part here, which is why I wanted to mention it first. Now, there isn't a magic trick to overcome that. You just need to remember that the perfect is the enemy of the good, and while if you don't start, you don't fail, if you don't start, you never learn anything either. Not doing anything is really boring. So get out of the way, perfectionism. I'm going to make stuff. So with that out of the way, why isn't the problem solved? Well, in my case, it's a resource problem. It could also be the case for other people, I think. So first, there's time. I'm not going to go into the particulars of my situation, but I know it's not unique. We have the dreaded day job. That eats up between 4 and 6 days out of the week, which means time for making art is limited. If you add the time needed for things like household chores, taking care of family if you have any, and maybe even socializing and spending time with people who are dear to you, that limits time even more. Linked to this is also the issue of energy. Some people are blessed with an abundance of it. I, unfortunately, am not, and I know that many others aren't either. After a long day at the day job, after everything that requires attention is done, the hit points, mana gauge, spell slots, spoons, whatever analogy you like to describe your energy levels and ability to do things, well, that's low. And while mindlessly doodling in your sketchbook is almost free in terms of energy investment, doing anything more is not. You really want to do this illustration that's been kicking around in your head all week. You want to do some studies to improve your skills. You want to try out a new medium maybe. All that you need energy for. Energy, which is a very, very precious resource at this point, and which might not be enough even. And then there's of course money, the cost of materials, which figures into things if you're a traditional artist. If you're a digital artist, fortunately those were upfront and there's very little ongoing cost, so at least there the pressure is off. So there we arrive at our starting point. Facing the page, all the materials laid out, and you know you have to make this one count. You need a new print for your Etsy shop or a sticker pack. You need to pad out your portfolio, or just want to make sure that you actually come out of this with some insight and new skills maybe. You have to get this one right. That's pressure. That's when the fear kicks in. What if something goes wrong? What if the result is bad? Then you've ruined your supplies if you're doing traditional art. You've squandered precious energy and wasted your time, of which you had very little to begin with. Oh no, it's the end of the world, or at least it's a very frustrating situation. It has happened to me a couple of times, some of them even due to bad supplies. As an aside, get good paper for your watercolors, it's really worth it. I say all this not to complain, but to present the background, what lurks inside that fear of messing up, basically. Ironically, that fear and the need to overcome it make you waste even more time and spend more energy before you've even started. Don't you love those situations? So, what do we do about it? Well, I'm not an expert or anything. I mean, the reason I'm even talking about this subject is because I've been trying to overcome that problem myself. I have a few ideas though, maybe they will be helpful to someone. So first, you need to lay off the pressure of goals and productivity and deadlines from yourself. We need to be realistic as to what we can accomplish and build in this buffer to make some allowances for times when the end product isn't usable in itself. For example, I will not commit to a YouTube once a week schedule because I know that just isn't possible for me. Ideally, I want to do a video every other week, but I know I can't commit to that either, so I don't. I know it hurts channel growth. However, this isn't wasted time. I learn more about making videos, I have fun, and I'm building a buffer of content, so it's not a waste to do that. Let's take as another example the portfolio piece. Even if you can't use your piece for the portfolio, you will still have learned something and gained some experience. For me, in a couple of paintings, it was that lesson about good watercolor paper. In another study I did, it was the importance of really starting with the light colors in watercolor. This piece won't work out, it's okay, the next one will. You don't have to show everything you do to everybody. I know that in this era of social media, we need to update constantly, but maybe it's not worth the extra stress and we need to accept a slower progress curve in order to maintain good mental health. Giving yourself the freedom to experiment and fail is so important. The followers you have who care about you will support you through things, and those who don't, you don't need them. A bit of a tangent here, I saw an example of just this 2 days ago at a concert. The singer lost his voice at the start of a song and paused the show very dramatically. The reaction from the audience? Applause and cries of encouragement. They restarted the song and the rest of the concert went great. So yes, people who care about you and your art, they will support you even through failure because they know you are more than just that one time that didn't work. I won't go over every possible example here. I think the point comes across. Fear of messing up and making bad art is essentially a form of fear of failure. Even if you fail at producing a usable end product, the time and energy themselves are never a waste, because failure teaches things. Sometimes you learn more from this so-called waste of time than you would if things worked out perfectly. Not everybody goes at the same pace, and you can't expect yourself to produce the same way as someone who has the benefit of financial support from a spouse or different circumstances can. There's another thing that can also come into play. If you sit down to paint or draw and you find yourself needing some time before you get started, it's perfectly normal. We need sometimes time to switch brain modes. You want to focus and give your attention to what you're doing, and for that you need to set aside what you were doing before. Sometimes you can do it with no problems, but sometimes it takes a little while, and that's normal. I used to get anxious about not being able to switch modes instantly, but now that I just give myself the space to do it, a lot of the anxiety is gone. So yes, I think the key point is to be flexible with your expectations from yourself and realize bad art is going to happen. It's going to happen because we're always learning and developing, and we're not perfect. Give yourself that space, that room to fail, that room to grow. Adjust and adapt to your circumstances. Accepting it, I think, might be the trickiest part. I know I have a hard time with acceptance, and I get frustrated so much when things don't happen according to plan. The first step is accepting that you are on your own schedule, not the idealized one that somehow floats around, but your own schedule that is connected to your own special environmental, mental, and physical circumstances. Then build that buffer into your plan. You need to realize what your true goals are and work towards those, slowly. Anxiety might always be there, but as long as we give it less to feed on, it won't be as significant. Let's break free of that loop. Okay, so I've talked a lot about building buffers into your plans. So what are my own plans? Well, this piece is going to be a print, along with a companion piece that I've yet to make. The tentative goal is to have both up on my Etsy store, along with my comic, by the end of next month. I'm really busy this month, and I know I won't be able to complete the second painting and get the prints made and source shipping materials in case I do get orders. I do want to continue making videos, so I'm aiming for at least one more this month. I also want to get into doing watercolor studies regularly, but here I think I'm starting to stretch myself. But it's a stretch goal, and if they don't happen every week, that's okay. The by the end of next month deadline should give me enough time to redo the second painting if it doesn't come out the way I want it, by the way, speaking of buffers. As for this piece, there were a few points where I thought I had ruined it, but then I pushed on and I think it ended up turning out okay. So take that fear. Alright, and now that it's done, we get to remove the tape. I hope you enjoyed this video and my ramblings. Do you also get anxious about making bad art? What are your reasons? Leave a comment below. And of course, if you did enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe, because even though it's not on a weekly schedule, I do release videos a couple of times a month. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!